Hello, YouTube. It's me, John Avenger, once again, and welcome to another non Marvel superhero month. And this time we're talking about a 2009 kind of an underrated film because the critics were mixed on this film. It didn't perform as well as it did because this movie came out before Deadpool and Logan, so R-rated superhero movies at that time were not very big hits. But this is the 2009 live adaptation of one of the most beloved graphic novels of all time, Watchmen. Yeah, and I will only be reviewing the theatrical cut because I have not seen the director's cut on Blu-ray or DVD, so bear with me. I saw this in theaters back in 2009. Great freaking experience watching this in a big screen with a bunch of people that have read the comic or the graphic novel. I never knew about it, and this counts because it's not Marvel. And I think the only reason this movie underperformed is not because kids couldn't go see this movie because it was R, and at the time R-rated superhero movies were not big business until Logan and Deadpool and before that it was just Blade, but Blade was Marvel, so Marvel films were profitable at that time. But this movie worked for me. This is what I wish BVS was more like this, just in the case of the writing. Not that BVS is the worst thing ever, but this is how you do it right. When Zack Snyder got this movie, he sold the shit out of this movie in the marketing with the trailers. And this movie is a visually stunning freaking movie. And like I said, there's a lot of positives with this movie. First of all, the cast is freaking phenomenal. This is better. This is a much better cast than half of the Marvel movies I've seen. That was not called Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxy or the first Blade movie or the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. This is a massive cast. It's a bunch of talented people. First, you got Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing the comedian, the first character. And there will be spoilers here, so if you have not seen Watchmen, get off your ass and go see it. It's an amazing film. Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays the comedian, and he's the first guy that dies in the beginning of the film. Basically, the film starts off with him like in his room, in his an apartment or house or whatever, and a bunch of guys come in and can kill him, and they throw him through glass. It's a great, awesome slow-mo. There's a lot of slow-mo shots in here because Zack Snyder really loves slow-mo, and it works in this movie. And they kill him. So basically the whole film is in an alternate 1985 and trying to find out who killed the comedian. And it's just really well acted. Like, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is such an asshole in this movie. He's called a comedian, but he's not funny. He in the beginning, in the flashback, he actually rapes, which they don't show, thank God, because I don't need that. He assaults Carla Gugino, who plays Silk Spectre, a gorgeous woman. Like, I have always found that woman desirable, whether it's the Spy Kids films, the first three films, or Night at the Museum, or the Mr. Popper's Penguins. That woman is a gorgeous woman. Just those green eyes and that beautiful face. Even Sucker Punch, I thought she was attractive in that, but this is much better than Sucker Punch. He rapes her, so she has a child out of wedlock, and it's a girl, and she names her Silk Spectre the second. And when she grows up, she becomes Malin Ankerman, who is this gorgeous, gorgeous female heroine. Oh my God. If Rey in The Force Awakens was like this, I would have never complained. This girl is sexy and has brown hair and this beautiful face. I mean, no wonder every guy wants to get in her pants. I'm like, well, almost every guy, mostly Dr. Manhattan and Night Owl. But this is a hell of a cast. I think this is Malin Ackerman's best performance. It's very subtle. It's not. Some people said she was terrible. I'm like, no. Freaking Jessica Alba in the second Fantastic Four. That's a worse performance. Or Kate Mara in Fan Four Stick. Or Halle Berry in Catwoman. Those are terrible female performances. This is actually really subtle. Like, you see the expression on her face. She's not some zombie like freaking Felicity Jones with her bud teeth. Malin Ankerman has always been beautiful. I liked her in this movie. I enjoyed her in Couples Retreat. She can be annoying in like The Heartbreak Kid, but if you give her a good role, she can shine, and she does shine here. But I gotta talk about the guy that steals this entire freaking movie, and nobody can argue this. The one character that people remember from this movie is Rorschach, voiced by and performed by the great Jackie Earle Haley. This is his best work ever in the history of his entire career. That voice that he does and that mask that he wears and how badass he is, this is a really deep character. This is probably the best character that Zack Snyder has ever, put to film, because this movie was deemed unfilmable, but they did it. Snyder was the perfect guy to do it, and he brought it to life. Rorschach steals the film. He's mostly in the film, with his trench coat and his fedora hat, and he's trying to find out. He's talking to people about what happened, and he has the deep, dark, Batman voice, which is awesome here. His voice is great, and he just has some moments that just made. I was like, it's shock value, but it shocked the hell out of me. There's a scene that he literally takes a meat cleaver and he cuts a guy's head open with it. He is so violent in this movie. There's another scene that they take his mask off and they put him in prison with a bunch of inmates, and he's on the line getting food, and he freaking throws cooking oil in a black guy's face. I was like, holy shit. And then he says, "There's one thing you got to know about me. You're not, I'm not locked up here with you. You're locked up here with me." And I'm like, Jackie Earl Haley just sold it. He sold it like a freaking champ. That man carries this movie on his shoulders to dead on. Just I love this character. Rorschach is one of the best non-Marvel or DC characters I've ever seen from any comic book or manga or graphic novel. Just he's a badass. I love this character. Just he spoke to me more than a lot of the other characters. But yeah, you also have other good actors too. You got Billy Crudup, who plays Dr. Manhattan. They show him in the beginning when he has hair and before his experiment went wrong and he became blue. Awesome special effects on Dr. Manhattan. It's a very good effect. I didn't need to see his penis. That's just kind of weird. I know they're like, oh, in the comics it's like that, but he's supposed to have the body of a man and he's bald and he has a symbol on his head. That's fine, but I like the scenes where he's wearing pants because I'm like, I don't have to see his schlong. I don't need to see that. I see enough of that on my own. Anyway, Billy Crudup's performance is a very monotone voice, but it's not boring. It's it works for the character because he's this supernatural being that's just like the genie from Aladdin. It's basically that, but he's not jokey like Robin Williams. Also, you have Matthew Good. He's okay as Adrian, the main villain. He kind of looks like a Robin knockoff with blonde hair, and just he has that CGI tiger at the end of the movie. He's okay, but he's kind of forgettable. He's probably one of the forgettable ones of this cast. And then you also have who else you have? I know there's another one. There's more people. Oh shit. Oh yeah. Patrick Wilson. I've always liked this actor. He plays Night Owl. He looks like a brown version of Batman, and he's really good dramatic actor. I haven't seen Hard Candy. I heard he's good in that. He was great in The Conjuring. I thought he was fantastic in that movie. Him and Vera Farmiga were great as the paranormal investigators in that movie. I even liked the film he did a couple years ago with Katherine Heigl. Yeah, it's a dumb movie, but I liked it because he was a very relatable character in Home Sweet Hell, where he gets revenge on his sadistic wife who's like wants everything a certain way, and then he kills her at the end, but not in cold blood. He does it by accidentally. That was an underrated movie. I thought his performance was really good. Really good actor. He has a nice spark with Malin Ankerman. Their scenes together. There's a sex scene in this movie, so this is not a movie for your kids. Do not let your kids watch this movie because it is R-rated for many reasons. There's a sex scene with them where she's stripping down, and I'm like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I get to see female nudity in the film, and it's not a porn like freaking 50 Shades of Grey. Fuck you. Anyway, that sex scene is done in a classy way. It's silhouette. You see the bodies caressing each other. It's making love. It's not, I'm going to fuck you to death. No, it's none of that. And they put the Hallelujah song from Shrek, and it fits. And then the climax is basically she hits a panel or whatever, or like a lever, and then the flames and Night Owl's ship goes off. That was pretty funny. I like that. I'm like, it's human beings have sexual desires. There's a scene that pretty much Dr. Manhattan's trying to finger her or something, and like trying to touch her body, and he can't please her because he's not human anymore. But with Night Owl, she finds her man and they get laid. Human beings have sexual desires. It is not that is not an opinion. We have them. There's a reason that we have things in the anatomy. I'm gonna just keep it PG. I don't want to over compensate. But anyway, It's a good scene. I don't think that. Also, this movie is extremely violent. Oh my god, this movie shocked me. I was like, this film is like the 2008 Rambo 4, but without the blowing heads off or whatever. But like I said, there's a scene. The scenes with Rorschach, all of them are really bloody. There's a scene in a flashback, which Zack Snyder loves to do flashbacks, but here they work. He bites. He's like a teenage boy or something, and these bullies are trying to attack him, and he bites a guy's cheek off. I'm like, what? He goes, "Arr," and bites it off. I'm like, holy shit. This movie just shocks me with the violence. There's also a scene in the prison when there's a prison break and he takes a midget into the bathroom, and all you see at the end is a pool of blood. I'm like, wow, this movie is not holding back at all. Like the pool of blood, you see him take him to the bathroom. They don't show anything. He walks out, pool of blood coming right out. It's like in Freddy versus Jason when Jason kills the guy in the bed, and then you see the pool of blood. This movie does not hold back at all with the violence. Deadpool definitely learned from this film. Don't hold back on the blood. When it's R rated, go for broke. Show us the gore and the blood. I know it sounds. I'm not sadistic. I promise. But when I'm seeing something R rated, I want to see R rated grisly violence when it's a comic book movie because it's not a kids comic book movie. It's basically an R rated Avengers. um, there are some problems though. The movie is way too long. I'm sorry, Zack Snyder, you're not making a biblical epic. You're making a superhero movie. You could have cut this film down at least 20 minutes. At least 20, 30 minutes. Make it 2 hours and 10 minutes or third. Civil War did a long running time, but I didn't feel it. Here, it does drag in some parts. There's a lot of slow parts in the middle of the film where there's a lot of talking. I know it's a comic book. There's going to be a lot of dialogue, and there's a lot of good dialogue in the movie. It's very well written because David Hayter actually gave a shit about the writing. It's not freaking David S. Goyer or any guy that worked with Christopher Nolan and some of the Batman films. It's really well done, but it's just too long. This movie, the theatrical cut I saw in the theater was 170 something minutes. Way too long. This movie's longer than The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. I'm like, cut it down a little bit, Zack Snyder. You don't need to make this movie that long. I know Justice League is that long. Bring it on. After this movie, 2 hours and 52 minutes of a DC superhero fest, I think it deserves it. Here, it could have been shorter. I'm sorry. Too many scenes in the past that don't matter. Like the opening was cool. I like visually it was stunning. But the scene with the girl kissing the girl, and that was stupid. That wasn't needed. There's a scene that Rorschach's walking and he sees prostitutes and she shows her titties. Hey, there's enough tits in the movie to film me. With Silk Spectre to Malin Ankerman is sexy enough for me. I don't need these random women coming out. And also, yeah, I don't like the ending. I'm going to say this right now. I did not like Rorschach getting killed. I love that character. He was the best thing in the movie. And then for self-sacrifice, it's not like he commits suicide. He takes his mask off in front of Dr. Manhattan, says, "Just do it." And Dr. Manhattan's so powerful, just waves his hand. Rorschach explodes. And this is a scene they stole in Man of Steel, so you cannot deny this. Defenders of Man of Steel, watch this scene when Rorschach dies and tell me it's not the same scene at the end of Man of Steel. Guy dies, and Night Owl goes on his knees and screams, and he goes, "No!" Same scene when freaking the Cavill's breaking Zod's neck, and then he goes, "Ah!" It's the same scene, but here it carries weight because we cared about Rorschach. We didn't care about Zod and Man of Steel. Here, it works because Rorschach was the best thing in the film. And when he dies, I felt it. I was like, oh man, that sucks because I love this character. And Jackie Earle Haley gave an Oscar-worthy performance. Screw you, Academy. This was a Oscar-worthy performance from Jackie Earle Haley. He may never get an Oscar now because he's getting older, but that man worked his ass off in this movie. And he's basically the Heath Ledger of this film because he steals every scene with the mask and without the mask because he's fantastic. I'm like, my God, where was this guy all along? He's been acting since he was a kid, and he does this movie, and he's fantastic. And then they gave him the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Fuck that movie, ruining his talent. But like I said, other than the running time, which is way too long no matter what cut, I will see the extended cut. But at home, you can get up and go to the bathroom and wash your face and drink coffee. That's fine. But in the theater, it's hard to watch something this long. But the running time is too long, and killing off Rorschach, it was a Force Awakens kind of a death. Except here, it's at the end of the film, and even though I didn't like it, I got enough Rorschach in the movie to last me a lifetime, and he wasn't phoning it in. In Force Awakens, you got Harrison Ford who tried, and then he dies like a pansy, and his own son kills him, and that pissed me off. That killed the movie for me. Here, it worked. It was shock value, showing that heroes can die in a comic book movie and stay dead. It's not like in DC or Marvel where dying is an inconvenience. They can bring him back in another movie or a show or whatever. But here, no, Rorschach stays dead. But you know what? Even though it bothered me in the theater, at home I could understand why they did it because I guess it's in the comic. But I want to read the graphic novel because I've heard great things. Also, the ending, I like the fact that because of Night Owl's nightcap with Silk Spectre 2, she's pregnant. That was a nice send off. That was a good way of saying that their relationship was not a waste of time. You got a baby out of it coming. Awesome. And the movie takes place in an alternate 1985, like in Back to the Future 2, the year I was born. I love that year where Richard Nixon, I think, is the president for like the third term or something. But it was well done here. It was just the story really worked for me. That's why I don't hate the movie, even though it's extremely long, but it was enough of a story that was coherent for me. There's a lot of flashbacks, but here it's not like Man of Steel where the flashbacks go from back and forth, and it's like you're trying to catch up to the movie. Here it works. It starts with the past, and then it ends on a high note with Silk Spectre 2 being pregnant and being with Night Owl, which is really cool. And I thought the characters worked well. These are deep, complex characters that I really dug, especially this is before I saw that masterpiece, The Avengers. And if I had seen Avengers first and then seen this, well, they probably would have been in the same boat because they're great freaking movies. I just think that I wish that this movie had made more money. It was an experience in the theater. I can tell you that much. And for an R-rated superhero film, it did not hold back. There's curse words, there's nudity, there's blood, there is freaking gore and violence. It does not hold back at all, and it felt grit. It felt this was definitely a theatrical film. It didn't feel direct to video. It didn't feel cheap. It was the money was on the screen. The scenes where Doctor Manhattan is just moving things with his hands and freaking blowing people up like they're like balloons is awesome. And there's a scene also that the comedian, of course, he's an asshole because it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan with a mask and a gun and a cigar. He kills a pregnant woman, and that's really dark. Like this movie gets insanely dark. This is not a happy-go-lucky, jokey Marvel movie. That's why I wanted to review it because it's one of the best non-Marvel movies I've seen with an ensemble cast that's really trying. A villain that's there. He's forgettable though, and a satisfying ending. Even though Rorschach died, he didn't die like a pansy, and Jackie Earle Haley was freaking fantastic. I was like, this was Oscar worthy. If Heath Ledger won for Dark Knight and he didn't even make it to the Oscars, I think Earle Haley should have gotten at least one nomination for best either supporting actor or best actor because he was great in this movie. Hollywood just doesn't get the superhero love. They're giving performances behind those masks and those costumes. They're giving it all, and I felt it with every bit of every scene, every frame of this movie. It was just like a comic come to life, and it doesn't get enough attention. I want to get this movie on Blu-ray because I want to see it again before the Justice League, before Avengers: Infinity War, before not before Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because that's coming out in a month, but I want to see it again. It's been too long. I thought the film was freaking fantastic. It has its flaws. Like I said, the running time is unbearable at times in the middle of the film, but other than that, there are some great things in Watchmen. Really great things. And I could not praise it any higher if I wanted to. I would give it like an 8 out of 10 on IMDb. It's a great freaking movie, visually stunning, one of best Zack Snyder's best work. Because after this, he made Sucker Punch, and I lost all faith in him after that. Because I hated Sucker Punch. I didn't like Man of Steel. BVS only gets the pass because of Ben Affleck, pretty much, because he kicked ass. And Justice League, I don't know. I'm hoping that it's Watchmen and not another Suicide Squad or Man of Steel because I need a good Justice League movie. Watchmen proved to be one of his near magnum opus because I do like the remake of Dawn of the Dead. That was one of his best films. And I haven't seen the movie with the owls, Legend of the Guardians, but I will see it. But Watchmen is a freaking great movie, and I would definitely recommend it. And it's kind of underrated because a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes is a little low. It's fresh, but it still could be like an 80% or 85%. And IMDb it was like an 8 point something, and then it went down to like a 7. It's still good, but I think it's better than freaking. I'm sorry. As much as I enjoy the Nolan Batman trilogy, it should have been this dark and violent because PG-13 when they're shooting people and there's no blood and they're using knives. I'm like, there should be blood. I'm sorry. You don't have to pussify to make it for kids. Not all comic book movies are for kids. Remember that, audiences and YouTube users. There are a lot of comic book movies that are not for your children under the age of 18. They're bloody, grisly, and they can get really dark with the subject matter and with the content that's on screen. But I'm not here to preach. Just go watch Watchmen. The Watchmen are worth your freaking time. And also that happy face with the blood on it, kind of symbolic and in a good way. It's not like like it insults me because it's like it's a symbol of the happy face is like an emoji from that time, and it was a good image just seeing that little yellow face. I was like, oh, cool, something that'll lighten the mood, especially since the movie's so dark. But Watchmen is great, and I would definitely want to get it on Blu-ray because it's been too long. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. I don't want to make this 30 minutes, but go watch it. It's a great freaking movie, and I would recommend watching either the theatrical cut if you don't want to see the 3 hour version and then going to the 3 hour version. Do not watch this on TV edited because it's not the same experience. They're gonna just edit a lot of the good stuff out, and I'd rather watch it. The only thing I would edit out is the penis, the blue penis. I don't need to see that. It's just kind of weird. But anyway, it's a great movie. Watch it, and I will see you guys in the next review. Later.